podcaster. Welcome to the Podcast Mix. Podcast Mix. Hello, podcaster. Welcome to the Podcast Mix, a Micme podcast. I'm your host, Nick, and thank you so much for taking the time to listen. You're here because you're a small business owner, entrepreneur, marketing professional, corporation, or hobbyist who wants to start a podcast but don't know where to start. This podcast is designed to teach people how to start and release their own podcast. You'll get insider tips and tricks delivered in simple, easy to understand language. But we don't want it to end there. We don't want to release the show, then leave you to fend for yourself. Because there's a lot to cover and some of it can be pretty dry, boring, and confusing, we want you to be able to ask questions about whatever you need help with whenever you want, because you'll most likely run into a few problems. In the description of every episode, you'll find all the ways you can contact us to start a conversation about where you are in the process. You'll have full access to expert podcast producers who will help you work through whatever problem you have. Each episode will also have a downloadable PDF with links to the various services and products we recommend. In the first episode, I'm going to talk about how to pre-plan your podcast so you get started on the right track from day one. You'll figure out who your podcast is for and why you're making it, why people are going to listen, and you'll decide where you're going to record. In episode 2 and beyond, you can look forward to learning about what equipment and software you need and how to set it up, where to find music and voiceover artists for your intro and outro, and we'll talk a bit about cover art, hosting services, how to submit to and get accepted by the biggest podcast directories available, and tons more. The official launch date of the Podcast Mix will be on February 24th, but remember, I really want this podcast to be an open book, and if you have any questions right now before you get started, or maybe you're in the middle of it and need some help, or if you want to make sure that we include something specific that you think should be in one of the episodes, go right now and get in touch. Here's all the ways you can connect. Micme Audio or The Nick Perry on Instagram, Micme Audio on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, Micme.com on the web, and get me directly via email at nick@micme.com. All these will be linked in the description if you missed any. Now, before I go, I want to leave you with a brief history of podcasting. Podcasting dates back to the 80s before worldwide use of the internet took off. A company called Radio Computing Services, now a subsidiary of iHeartMedia, developed a non-paper-based solution designed to automate the music scheduling process for radio and television stations. With the invention of broadband internet access in the early 90s and portable digital audio playback devices that can connect to the internet like the iPod, podcasting's popularity started to grow in the early 2000s. In September of 2000, MP3 player manufacturer i2Go started MyAudioToGo.com to serve its MP3 player's content. MyAudioToGo.com let users download short clips of news, sports, entertainment, weather, and music in MP3 format for listening on the PC and MP3 player while offline. In 2001, Dave Weiner demonstrated how to attach songs to an RSS feed by attaching a Grateful Dead scripting news web blog, making the possibility of podcasting a little more real. Using a similar system as MyAudioToGo.com, a method for providing episodic media had been in development, and in 2004, audioblog.com was launched as the first commercial podcasting hosting service. It later became hipcast.com and has hosted hundreds of thousands of podcasts since. People took notice over the course of that year, leading Apple to add podcasting to its iTunes 4.9 music software. iTunes started to build a directory of podcasts in its iTunes music store, allowing people to subscribe to, download, and organize podcasts all in one place. In July of that year, President George W. Bush became an early podcaster when the White House website added an RSS 2.0 feed, allowing people to listen to the president's weekly radio addresses as podcasts. And in 2006, the word podcast was added to the dictionary after becoming the new Oxford American Dictionary's word of the year. Fast forward to today, and podcasts are everywhere and more accessible than ever. As of December 2018, Serial is the most downloaded podcast of all time, with 420 million total downloads. NPR is the most popular podcast publisher with over 175 million downloads and streams a month, and as of April 2019, Nielsen and Edison Research reports 700,000 active podcasts worldwide, with South Korea leading the world in podcast listeners with 58% of the population listening, while only 32% of Americans are listening a month. My name's Nick, and thank you so much for listening. This has been the Podcast Mix, a Micme podcast. Please come back on February 24th for more. And if you plan to launch your own podcast, feel free to say hi on social media. I can't wait for you to launch your own podcast.